Stun was playing a happier tune, a sweet ballad. But no sooner had the happy song ended, Stun began their last song with a great thunder and lightning, crashing drums and screeching guitars, a long improvised jam track, which had each of their members taking off on wild, extended, and totally unpredictable solos. They returned only to crash and burn before setting off again. The mad hallucinations were gone, but Ira was still unable to focus. She rubbed her eyes furiously, wishing that the rainbow aura disappeared from every shape she saw, but it didn't. This song Vishnu was saying in between intense guitar riffs is called The Last Hurrah. The crowd roared, and with this song he continued, We shall all be on fire tonight. JD was holding on to a steady beat. BBC was filling in the blanks. Vishnu moved to the edge of the stage, put one foot up on the monitors and struck a fat, orgasmic sound, his face contorting to every peak and every trough of the graph. The crowd gasped. Vishnu twisted the guitar's whammy bar and set the screams into a loop. He then walked around, swinging his arms casually, dancing, surrounded by the swirling sounds that kept coming in wave after wave. Ira watched as he came down to the edge of the stage again, the loop now dying down. Ira, Ira could see his face frozen into an expression of intense concentration, his jaws stiff. She knew the big solo was on its way. A moment's pause and it began. The bum note. Ira watched as Vishnu's face disintegrated into 100 angry pieces. The solo, now maimed, still raged on like a wounded horseman, tearing through the enemy lines for the last kill. But she knew he would never be able to forgive himself, and he didn't. BBC and Lenin had moved in with backing fire, but Vishnu was not looking at them. He rode his solo up the climax and then suddenly lifted his guitar over his head, grabbed its neck with both his hands and brought it crashing down on the stage. Again and again and again, till the feedback, his beloved effect, died down, and the red guitar lay broken, silent. It was no hallucination. After a moment's shocked silence, the uproar began. I think,
I
now
think
Imtiaz's turn next.
contrast between the traditional Indian music and the Western is coming out very beautifully. Although there was something very beautiful also about their levels of concentration and wizardry in their music in a different way, but somehow the same high. So this one is very different. It's from a chapter called Love on LSD. This is more social somehow, about music and musicians, and also about lifestyles that they take. For most middle-class homes, however, these were gloomy days. The boys left home every day with a guitar or a pair of drumsticks. As they wandered around the skinny alleys of music, their families saw the ghost of an earlier generation hang over them. That brilliant lot wiped out in the violent ideological conflict of the 70s. This time it was the pestilence of band music, guitar and ganja, which was claiming them. Most of parents conquered sullenly. The doors to most of the boys' room remained tightly shut. Foul-smelling smoke snaked out of the cracks and keyholes, as did the music that almost always spoke about the futility of hope and love gone sour, of dazed afternoons and mythical lands where wise men handed out chillums loaded with wisdom, and of the system that was of no use to anyone. The parents sometimes listened in, sniffed the air and shook their heads gravely before walking away heavily. Sometimes there were ugly scenes too, when they banged on the doors demanding to be let in, but most of them fell back on the wisdom and cunning that comes naturally with years of parenting and waited for this magic world to fall apart. They were confident it would happen sooner or later. After all, if the bubble bursts for them, how would their children be spared? On this happy note, the furrows would disappear and they would sail through the rest of the day.
Okay, thanks so much for the Imtiaz. So those are the only excerpts. For the rest of the book, you guys have to buy it. It's available here. There are a lot of copies I saw while coming in, so please do pick up your copy on the way out. You can get autographed by Chandrima later, once we wrap this up. So, to carry the evening forward, just would like to engage both Chandrima and Imtiaz in a bit of a conversation in terms of the commonality of the theme of music. Obviously, we've already discussed about A Song for I and how it's so deeply kind of influenced by the various musical genres that she's grown up through and continues to grow in. And of course, Imtiaz, like he mentioned, the premise of his film, in last year's film Rockstar, was music. Again, tracing a musical journey of Jordan in a sense through tumultuous times, and the only constant sort of in the entire play and the plot is the music. So I think I'd like to ask each of them to talk about how that commonality has come through. And of course, we will not forget the question that Imtiaz asked you earlier about how music, being an audiovisual sort of a medium, cinema is much easier to depict, and how it's much tougher to do it in a literary medium. So.
Actually, I would like to ask Imtiaz something now. You asked me how I do it when I'm writing, right? To talk about music and make it seem interesting. I would like to ask you about one particular song and scene from Rockstar, which I think a lot of us over here would identify with. It's that song where Ranbir's character, he's at the dargah and he's playing the music, and then suddenly he has, is that an epiphany for me, for him, where he suddenly looks up and there's a sort of a transformation. So that's a beautiful song, and it's sort of it somehow kept coming back to me when I was when this book was all done, and it was ready, and I was just thinking about it, and I thought there was sort of a resonance somewhere, but I would like to know from you what exactly was on your mind when you were visualizing that song, and how were you writing that particular scene when you were working on it?
I'm glad that it worked for you. Again, as I said, the advantage of making a movie is the fact that it's collaborative, you move, you go to places, you see, you hear. So it involves you and gives you the opportunity of showing all that. This particular song,
It's Kun Faya Kun, for those who are not plugged
Yes.
in.
it's called Kun Faya Kun. And it really, the original conception was that I felt that anybody who leaves home or is kicked out of his house, etc., is on the streets, can always go to places like the dargah, the gurudwara, etc., and find refuge, and something or the other is going on. So this guy who's interested in music would go to a dargah because Qawwali book keeps going on over there, and it's the kind of Qawwali. Qawwali is the kind of music which I thought that somebody who is a little from the heart would associate with more. And it's and I do know that for instance, in Hazrat Nizamuddin, in the dargah space, there are also the traditional qawwals who live there, who are also called Nizami Bandhu and Chand Sahab and all that, who are seen in the